everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. It's your boy Shifty coming at you with another video. Today we're going to do my third installment of Mock Draft Monday. Now this is being recorded on Monday the 11th of April. It'll most likely be released on Tuesday after I edit it and all that good stuff. But yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into this mock draft courtesy of the Draft Network's Mock Draft Simulator. Let's go. Alrighty folks, now we're about to kick off the full 7-round mock draft, again using the Draft Network's Mock Draft Simulator. We're going to do normal speed. So as we're waiting for the 49ers pick to come up, let's talk about needs real quick. I believe the Niners for sure could upgrade the interior offensive line. We brought back Daniel Brunskill. Sounds like Mac is going to be back for one more year at center. We have Aaron Banks going to be probably slotted maybe for that right guard position. As of now, I think Brunskill will be in that left guard position. But, we could definitely look to upgrade, plus find a long-term solution at center behind Alex Mack. Now, Mike McGlinchey, recently there was a picture of Mike McGlinchey. I believe he was at a benefit for a foundation, and he was looking really thin, looking a little too thin, almost Joe Staley-esque, post-career. So Mike McGlinchey's really got to bulk up over the next 4 months, and his long-term position with the 49ers is certainly not assured. Now, I do like Jalen Moore a lot, who we picked last year, to maybe be the successor at right tackle. Also, Colton McKivitz did a good job, but let's just not forget that we should really draft a pure offensive tackle somewhere in this mock draft. Safety, for sure, we could look to upgrade. If we don't upgrade safety, if the need and the value doesn't, really mesh that well in terms of value at our certain spots, then I absolutely believe that we could bring back Jaquiski Tartt. A lot of different ways that we can go. There's a lot of different directions the 49ers can go in. I think maybe depth on the defensive line, at edge. It's never, a bad thing to have a surplus of edge rushers. They are always in demand. So even cornerback a little bit. Although I do think that we have, 3 very solid cornerbacks, but we did see last year what happens when you lose your cornerbacks, that we just got torched and we were giving up all kinds of pass interference penalties. So without further ado, let's not waste too much time here and let's get right into it. So there's a lot of different options that we can go with here at this position. But to me, the name that really sticks out here is going to be Dylan Parham from Memphis. I think he can slot in, be a day one starter at left guard. That moves Brunskill to that, 6th offensive lineman position where should anyone get hurt, hopefully not, but should anyone get hurt, he could just slot right in, do an excellent job, basically playing any position. And that, I believe, is where his true value is at. Now, as we're waiting for the next pick to come through, there's just so many different directions that the 49ers can go in. We don't have a ton of needs, but we can for sure use depth. So let's see where we're doing here. And this is tough because there's 2 names that really, really stick out to me right here. Marcus Jones, the cornerback out of Houston, and then Sam Williams, the edge rusher from Ole Miss. Now, to me, I would actually have them on a pretty even keel. So what I'm actually going to look at here is the need, because I think the value for both of these guys is about just as good as one another. Now, I think typically you might argue that, and maybe justifiably so, that edge rusher would be, the better value pick because that position is more sought after. But we have, Nick Bosa, we have Omenahu, we have Jordan Willis, we have Ebukam. We have a lot of guys at the edge rusher position. So I don't think it's an absolute need. We brought in Kimoko Toure as well on a visit, and maybe we look to sign him. So I think the 49ers are in a really solid spot at edge. So I'm actually going to go with Marcus Jones here out of Houston. He will immediately fill that nickel spot. Now, I know Emmanuel Moseley can play that, but as we saw last year, we need to have depth. So we have Charvarius Ward, we have Emmanuel Moseley, we have Embry Thomas, now we have Marcus Jones. I think we're looking really, really solid when you also throw in Diamador Lenore. We brought back Dante Johnson. So the depth there at cornerback is actually really, really good for us, and we really can't complain about that at all. Now, where do we go from here? So there's a couple of different options. So someone who I really like is actually DeAngelo Malone. He had a very, very productive career at Western Kentucky, and we actually just brought him in for a virtual interview. If we hadn't taken Dylan Parham, I could maybe see us going Alec Lindstrom here, even though Lindstrom projects more as a center and Parham more as a guard. I don't know if we want to necessarily invest 2 of our top 3 picks in the interior offensive line where there might be options later. So at this point here, I'm actually kind of choosing between Myjai Sanders and DeAngelo Malone. Honestly, although Myjai Sanders definitely has moments where he's flashed, his combine was iffy, although I think he had the flu. But at the Senior Bowl, he was not impressive at all. The Niners have shown clear interest in DeAngelo Malone here. So yeah, let's mix it up. Let's go DeAngelo Malone, the edge from Western Kentucky. And now, although we went Marcus Jones, the previous pick, we still get a very solid prospect at edge. And then Kimoko Toure now maybe would become a little bit redundant in bringing him in. And we get a guy who we can develop from their rookie year. And so I really do like how this draft has gone so far. While the picks are coming through, if we look right now, we've upgraded our interior offensive line. We got that nickel back, someone who immediately replaces K'Wan Williams, who I was pretty bummed to lose out on. He went to Denver on a good deal there. Denver should be very competitive this year. And then we get DeAngelo Malone, who we just brought, we just interviewed in real life, and I think that would be a really solid pick in terms of maybe being that like elite edge guy. I think he could learn a lot from Ebukam. Ebukam came along leaps and bounds last year. Now, we are in the 4th round, pick 134 overall. There are a couple of guys here who I really do like. I like Rachaad White. I think I took him in the last mock draft. Perfect scheme fit for what Kyle Shanahan likes to do. Look, we have Elijah Mitchell. We have solid depth at running back. Although last year we also saw a lot of guys get hurt. So, we have to be aware of that too. If there's a safety around here, I could absolutely be talked into taking a safety, but, we also don't want to force the issue as well. So let's kind of see who is available right here. I like Cole Turner a lot. Kalen Barnes ran a lightning fast 40. He is just ridiculously quick. So let's see. Velus Jones, another solid prospect. Jerome Ford. Actually, the Niners just spoke with Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati, so that's an option there. Hassan Haskins, another really good. A lot of good running backs in this draft, So a lot of different directions that we can go in. Now, to me, a name that does stick out here a little bit is actually going to be Cam Jurgens. He's actually a center prospect. So I know really I just mentioned hey, maybe not using 2 of our first 3 picks on the interior offensive line, but I'm really tempted to go with Cam Jurgens here because long term, learn from Alex Mack this year and then just slot in right away. And let's just not overthink it. Let's just do it. Cam Jurgens. So we have our long-term answer at center, hopefully drafted. We have our left guard of the future in Dylan Parham drafted. We brought back Daniel Brunskill, so suddenly the offensive line is really talented and really deep as well. So I'm liking the direction so far that this draft has gone. And look, it's never a bad thing to invest in the offensive line because as 49er fans, we've seen over the years, when the offensive line stinks, that's not good. And of course, for our young, quarterback Trey Lance, we want to give him as great protection as we possibly can. So, and I think we've done a great job so far here of doing that. And he has a ton of weapons to work with as well. Now we are in the 6th round, pick 172. A number of times in mock drafts, I've gone Verone McKinley, but I'm going to go Pierre Strong Jr., and I'm not going to think about it. The dude is just what I talked about with Rashad White from Arizona State. Pierre Strong is just Kyle Shanahan in a nutshell. We did see last year what happened when we lost a lot of players to injury at running back. So we lost, Trey Sermon was in and out, Elijah Mitchell was in and out, Jeff Wilson, and JaMychal Hasty. So having that depth at running back is absolutely key. So I'm more than happy to take Pierre Strong Jr. right there. Now we're at pick 187 overall. I think the last pick was actually round 5. Now we're in round 6. Pick 187. So let's see if there are any options of guys here who meet need plus talent. So let me see. Someone here who I do like is Leon O'Neal Jr., Texas A&M, another guy the 49ers have met with. I'm a big fan of Tyquan Thornton. I think he could be someone who excels in this offense. Another guy who stood out to me is Kalen Barnes, who I think is right here. But maybe it's kind of going too far with need. But I do want to get us a safety that we can develop, and I'm going to go Leon O'Neal Jr. from Texas A&M, someone who I think would be fantastic given some time. Now we brought in George Odom, we have Jimmy Ward, we have Hufanga, who I think Hufanga is going to ultimately be that safety / linebacker guy. Tarvarius Moore is coming back from injury. Do we potentially still bring back Jaquiski Tartt? You never know. And plus, again, injuries happen. It's unfortunate reality, but injuries happen here. So in football, so having depth, it's all, having key depth is never a bad thing. Never complain about having awesome depth. Now, in reality, the 49ers actually have the Mr. Irrelevant pick. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm actually going to try and pause the draft right by the last pick so we can actually see who else we would pick up. But at pick 220, and we have back-to-back picks here. These are both compensatory picks, I believe. Let's see who we can go with. I do like Mykael Wright from Oregon. Oregon have put out some really, really solid cornerbacks and defensive backs over the last few years. Smoke Monday, I think I've mentioned this before, maybe the best name in the draft, and that is absolutely worthy of a pick right there, just because of the name, and I'm being totally serious, by the way. Let's see, Eric Johnson. Wow, when I see that name, I think of the old tight end for the 49ers, Dontario Drummond. All right, so let's scroll up. I am going to go with Mykael Wright. So we get another player at cornerback. We got Marcus Jones. We got Mykael Wright competing with Diamador Lenore, Mykael Wright's old teammate who's now with the Niners, of course. So at cornerback, that was maybe our biggest problem area last year. Now it's probably our deepest outside of linebacker and arguably wide receiver. That could be our deepest position on an edge as well. So now I'm kind of negating my whole point here, but I think cornerback would be absolutely solidified with that. Now, let's see. I'm falling off my handle right here. So we have, according to this, we have one more pick. But in reality, we do have the Mr. Irrelevant pick. So trying to think what names here are sticking out to me. And I might end up going with Old Faithful if he's still here. And that would be Tyler Vrabel. Wow, he is way down here. CJ Verdell, he's actually someone from Oregon who I think would be a pretty solid fit for the 49ers too. All right, so there's a lot of cornerbacks, a lot of running backs. We're pretty good there. This position here, Charleston Rambo. So Charleston Rambo, I actually read on here, and maybe I touched on this before, but it says his hands are not good. And some of the highlights I've seen from him and the tape I've seen from him are just ridiculously good hands. So maybe I don't totally agree with that, with the Draft Network's review on their thoughts on Charleston Rambo. But yeah, let's not waste too much time here. Let's pick someone who stands out and potentially fills a need, and someone who I actually do like, because I do like the Texas A&M defense, is actually Aaron Hansford. Now, linebacker, we are really, really deep there, but you never know when you can find a late-round gem at linebacker. Those are some of the positions that just can sometimes come up out of nowhere. Kevin Austin Jr. is another guy, too, who I do really, really like. 6'2", Notre Dame, really solid. Wow, this is getting to be like, you know what? Just like Yellowstone National Park, we're going Tyler Vrabel. I did mention earlier that I wanted to draft a pure offensive tackle prospect, someone who we could absolutely look to develop long-term to maybe replace McGlinchey in 2023. Now, I think competition is also another really underrated thing, and competition can really bring out the best in a lot of players, because when you look at it, if you have a guy like Tyler Vrabel competing with Jalen Moore, competing with McKivitz, they're going to have to each step up their game, and that's assuming that Mike McGlinchey doesn't come back and like step up and actually be a lot more effective where he was. So I tried to pause the draft, but I guess it didn't want me to do that. So the Niners, I do believe, have the Mr. Irrelevant pick. So in reality, we'd have another pick to go with. But let's quickly recap who we took. So Dylan Parham, plug and play left guard ideally. Marcus Jones, plug and play nickel back. Great, with a team as deep as the Niners to potentially get 2 immediate starters, that would be awesome. DeAngelo Malone, we met with him, could be part of that rotation at edge rusher. Cam Jurgens, depth behind Alex Mack. Pierre Strong, we talked about him before. Great fit. Depth at running back. Leon O'Neal Jr. Depth at safety. Someone, again, who the 49ers have met with, and I believe fits this defensive scheme really well. We still potentially bring back Jaquiski Tartt, Mykael, Wright. We really do like the defensive backs from Oregon. I do, but I know the 49ers do as well. Tyler Vrabel could compete, potentially long-term for that right tackle position. So that's going to sum up. That was the third installment of my mock draft. Definitely heavy on cornerback and offensive line, but I think those are positions that we struggle with a little bit last year. Plus, on the offensive line, Mack is going to retire. Who knows about Brunskill long-term? Who knows about McGlinchey long-term? So investing in the offensive line, especially with those things in mind, is never a bad idea. Let me know, guys, what you think about my mock draft here. Of course, feel free to critique my picks, who you may have picked in those spots, your mock drafts. I always love reading them. It's one of my favorite things leading up to the draft itself. I'm still very much working on my documentary about the Mike Nolan era San Francisco 49ers, so that'll be out probably about the end of the month, and so far it's coming along really well, and I'm super stoked on it. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. If any breaking news comes through with the Niners, I will absolutely keep you guys in the loop. And I didn't actually draft a wide receiver here. One of the reasons why, the Niners brought in Malik Turner, and we brought in Marcus Johnson, who I touched on in other videos. So yeah, if any breaking news comes up, obviously we'll go over that. But in the meantime, guys, I'm going to say 2 things. The butt counts, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side.